Hello YouTube. Welcome back to another video. I know I've not uploaded in, well, a long time. Uh, but today I wanted to talk about something I was just thinking about. I thought, let's make a good video. Because I've said this before. I don't like doing reviews. I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm offering anything new, and it's just not what I prefer to do. But that's why I don't do them. I have done I think I did, like, a Crimson Empire review, like, 3 or 4 years ago now, but maybe not that long, 3 years ago. Um, but what I wanted to talk about for this video and, I was what I was saying with that is, I struggle to find ideas, but this is something I thought would be interesting. Are there any EU stories that are better than the films? I think this is a great question. For a lot of EU fans, um, not necessarily myself, but for a lot of EU fans, they wouldn't be fans of Star Wars if it wasn't for the expanded universe. Um, I can't necessarily say the same thing because growing up, I was a fan and I loved Star Wars, obviously just the movies. And I did watch CCW. I grew up in a different era where Star Wars was more than just the movies. There was CCW. Um, and then Rebels came out, and then, that's just my age group. So Star Wars was always, more than just the movies, but for many people who, watched the movies when they came out, and, before the prequels had come out, and before, the sort of the modern Star Wars era, that's all there was the movies, and that was it. Um, but for me, I was a fan before I ever got to the EU, or I could call myself a fan. I didn't just say Star Wars is cool or whatever, but no, I loved Star Wars. So obviously still do. So what I wanted to talk about, are there any EU stories better than the films? Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting topic. Um, yes and no. That's my answer. I'm gonna have to explain. If we're talking about the prequels, I'd say yes. There are EU stories better than the prequels. Um, The prequels are I love the prequels, but they're not my favorite. And when I say I love the prequels, I love the prequels. I love all 3. Those again, I grew up with those movies. Even Phantom Menace, I love Phantom Menace. I love all 3 of them for what they are. But those films are they're just that. They're prequels. Um they're not the originals. I know they are held in the same tier, on the canon tier, at least even now, Disney says those are the end all be all for Star Wars. They don't act like it, but that's what they say. Oh, we're not gonna talk about that. But in my view, whatever that's worth, um, the prequels are certainly, they are higher than the EU in terms of canonicity, but they're prequels. They're not on the same level as the original trilogy for me. The original trilogy is the end all be all for Star Wars. If we're gonna talk about the true story of Star Wars, what Star Wars really is at its core, it's the original trilogy. Every single Star Wars story outside of that needs the original trilogy in order to exist. Because of that, the original trilogy holds a standard, or there's a certain treatment that the original trilogy deserves that no other Star Wars story will ever or has ever had, including the prequels, including CCW, including whatever else George considered canon. Um, George may not agree with that. That's fine, but in my view, this is just my view. This is nothing objective. This is my view. The original trilogy has a very special standard. It's a very special trilogy, very special story within Star Wars, because it is that story where every other Star Wars story comes out of. No other Star Wars story could exist without it. Because of that, no, I don't think there is any expanded universe story or new canon story for that matter that's better than the films. Or better than the original trilogy. Prequels, yes. NJO, I will take that over the prequels any day of the week. Um, I'll take the well, I don't know about the Thrawn trilogy. Probably, yeah. I'd probably take the Thrawn trilogy over the prequels. I don't know if I'd say for any other story outside of those 2. Um, yeah, definitely NJO. Thrawn trilogy, I kinda question that because, even though the prequels, I don't feel are on the same standard as the originals, there's still at a there's still a certain amount of respect that we have to give those movies simply for the fact they're George Lucas written. They are George Lucas made. George made those movies. Those are, in his mind, the first 3 of a 6-act play or 6-act saga. So, even though I don't hold it up to the same as the originals, they still deserve a certain treatment that I don't think any other Star Wars story can have, obviously, except the original trilogy, which deserves a higher treatment. So it's hard for me to say that there are things better than the prequels too, but for sure the NJO. I think the NJO is the peak of Disney canon. Look at me getting brain rot. No, they're the peak of the expanded universe. Well, I guess NJO is better than anything Disney's ever made and will ever make, but the EU was at its best with the NJO, period. I don't, yeah. People are going to say multimedia project or KOTOR, Shadows, maybe not. Yeah, I don't think people say Shadows of the Empire, but definitely multimedia project. I can see that. Um, you could make an argument for that, but in my opinion, the NJO was the peak of expanded universe storytelling. Um, and I could see someone making an argument that it's better than the OT. I've seen people say that. I just don't agree because I think the original trilogy is just so special. It's so, even now, even though I love the NGO with all my heart, but the original trilogy is still my favorite. Period. It's still my favorite Star Wars story ever, and I don't think that'll ever change. Um, it's such a unique case, the original trilogy, because it is the original, right? It's like take like let's say Star Trek. I don't know too much about Star Trek. I know 60s to start out with the original series. Um, if I was a Star Trek fan, I'd probably say that's the best. Not because I think it's, anything narratively it did, but it's the original. Now, actually, I don't even know about that. I don't know Star Trek. That's kind of a bad example. But I could imagine a Star Trek fan saying that. If we look at Marvel, let's look at Marvel. I'm sure there'll be Marvel fans will be like, "Well, the original Fantastic Four run, I don't think anything else can beat it because that's the original Marvel story. That's where Marvel began. I know technically there were stories before that with, Marvel's Captain America, Namor, the original Human Torch, the original Vision. You know, those were like Marvel, like what Marvel used to be, under different names. But Marvel really didn't begin until Fantastic Four. So for many people, that is the best that is the best Marvel. And um because that was the first, right? It's the original. That's the standard for Marvel. That's truly Marvel Comics. I guess again, Marvel's not the best example, but that's how I treat that's how I feel about the originals. I feel that since it is the original, and even then, the originals I still don't feel that there's been any other story that's been better than that, solely because of obviously the rivalry between Luke and Vader and, Luke redeeming Vader despite all odds. That is such a beautiful, crafted story that there's nothing else in the EU that I think could top it. Um, it's simply just amazing. It's perfect in other words, and I don't think the EU could ever got close to that. Again, they're okay. They could get close to it. They got close to it with NGO, but they could have never beat it. I don't think. Um, the original trilogy is it's just different. It's different. It's what Star Wars. It is truly Star Wars. Period. No matter what anybody else says. So, that's what all I have. for this video. If you have any other things you'd like me to talk about or offer my opinion on, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear. Um, I want to get back to uploading, and I've been streaming more. I've been trying to stream more. I know you guys like that. In fact, when I'm recording this a few hours ago, I just did a stream. I did it with Nazo, talking about canon, but um, yeah, I'd love to do another video. Again, I don't have many ideas. Um, topics I would like to address, I can't because other people talked about it, and I want new topics. I guess I could offer my opinion on different things, but I know Arthur did a video about canon uh, in reference to supernatural encounters. Does it even matter? Great video, and I pretty much agree with everything he said. But anyway, I'm rambling. If you guys have any other things you'd like me to talk about, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Long live the expanding universe.